Aung San Suu Kyi was born on June 19, 1945, in Rangoon, now Yangon, in British colonial Burma, in a modest two-story house on Tower Lane, as the second child and only daughter of Bogyoke Aung San, the revered nationalist leader whose strategic brilliance forged Burma's path to independence, and Daw Khin Chhi, a devout Buddhist and former nurse from a humble Mandalay family whose quiet strength and social grace later elevated her to diplomatic prominence. The youngest of 4 children, Suu Kyi grew up alongside her 3 brothers, Aung San Yumin, born in 1942, who became a reserved physician and shunned politics, Aung San Suu, born in 1943, a future engineer who emigrated to the United States in the 1970s and grew estranged over ideological differences, and Aung San Lin, born in 1944, whose tragic drowning at 8 in 1951 in an ornamental pond at their lakeside home on University Avenue left a lasting scar on the family. Aung San, a former student radical turned military tactician, had founded the Burma Independence Army, BIA, in 1941 with Japanese training in Bangkok, briefly collaborating with the Axis to oust British colonialists before switching allegiance to the Allies in March 1945, a deft maneuver that secured his stature as Burma's liberator. As commander of the BIA and later Minister of Defense in the transitional government, he negotiated the historic Panglong Agreement on February 12, 1947, uniting Burman, Shan, Kachin, and Chin ethnic leaders in a federalist vision for independence, promising autonomy and equality, a dream cut short when, on July 19, 1947, gunmen hired by rival politician U Sa stormed the Secretariat building in Rangoon, assassinating Aung San and 6 cabinet colleagues in a hail of Sten gun bullets, leaving 2-year-old Suu Kyi fatherless and her mother a widow at 35. Khin Chhi, thrust into single parenthood amid national mourning, raised her children in the University Avenue bungalow, a colonial-era villa surrounded by tamarind trees, where Suu Kyi absorbed her father's legacy through his preserved speeches, yellowed photographs, and visits from his comrades, including socialist U Nu, who became Burma's first prime minister in 1948. Independence on January 4, 1948, brought jubilation but also chaos. The Karen National Union launched an insurgency, communist factions revolted, and ethnic militias clashed, fracturing Aung San's federalist vision as the new government struggled to assert control. Suu Kyi's early years unfolded in this volatile milieu. At the Methodist English High School for Girls in Rangoon, she excelled in English literature, history, and civics, her sharp intellect earning praise from missionary teachers, while she mastered the piano, playing Beethoven and Chopin, and memorized her father's rousing calls for unity, which her mother kept in meticulously curated scrapbooks. The family's Buddhist faith, rooted in Theravada principles of metta, loving-kindness, karuna, compassion, and ahimsa, non-violence, shaped her moral compass, though political violence intruded early. In 1948, a grenade attack targeting Khin Chhi at a memorial event narrowly missed, and in 1953, a communist sniper's bullet grazed their car, embedding a lifelong wariness in the young Suu Kyi, who clung to her mother's stoicism. By 1960, when General Ne Win's military coup ushered in the repressive Burmese way to socialism, nationalizing industries, expelling foreigners, and censoring dissent, Khin Chhi was appointed Burma's ambassador to India and Nepal, relocating the family to New Delhi, where 15-year-old Suu Kyi enrolled at the Convent of Jesus and Mary before transferring to Lady Shri Ram College for Women at the University of Delhi. In New Delhi from 1960 to 1964, Suu Kyi immersed herself in India's post-colonial vibrancy, studying philosophy, politics, and economics under professors who had known Gandhi and Nehru, whose ideals of nonviolent resistance and secular nationalism profoundly influenced her. Living at 24 Akbar Road, the Burmese ambassadorial residence, she accompanied her mother to diplomatic receptions, meeting figures like Indira Gandhi, whose iron-willed pragmatism left an impression, and volunteered at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, tending to cholera patients and reading Ruskins unto this last to lepers, experiences that honed her empathy and discipline. She wrote poetry in Burmese, evoking the Irrawaddy River and Bagan's pagodas, and learned Hindi, delighting classmates with recitations of Tagore's Gitanjali. In 1964, after Khin Chhi suffered a stroke, Suu Kyi returned briefly to Rangoon, enrolling at the University of Rangoon's philosophy department, but Ne Win's regime, banning foreign books, closing universities during protests, and rationing rice to 1 cup daily, stifled her, prompting her departure for the United Kingdom in 1965 to pursue a BA in philosophy, politics, and economics at St. Hugh's College, Oxford. At Oxford, from 1965 to 1967, she thrived amid tutorials with philosopher Gem Anscombe and historian Hugh Trevor Roper, captaining the Women's Boat Club, cycling through cobbled lanes, and debating colonial legacies in the Oxford Union, her understated charm winning over peers like Lord David Owen, who recalled her quiet fire. In 1969, while working as a UN tour guide in New York, she met Michael Vaillancourt-Harris, a lanky Tibetologist and Oxford classicist, during a Bhutanese festival in Thimphu, where they bonded over Himalayan treks and shared readings of Orwell's Burmese Days and Kipling's Kim. Their romance deepened in Bhutan's Paro Valley, and after Suu Kyi's 1967 graduation with upper second-class honors, delayed by her UN stint, they married on March 26, 1972, in a modest London church, she in a borrowed cream silk dress, he in a tweed suit, followed by a Scottish honeymoon where they climbed Ben Nevis. Settling in a terraced house at 15 Park Town, Oxford, they welcomed sons Alexander Aung Aris on March 12, 1973, and Kim Aung Aris on April 25, 1977, Suu Kyi balancing motherhood with part-time roles as a Burmese language tutor and research assistant at the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOS, where she began a never-completed biography of her father, poring over his 1940s letters smuggled from Rangoon. The family spent 1974 to 1976 in Shimla, India, where Michael studied Tibetan manuscripts and Suu Kyi taught literacy to tribal women, and later in Kyoto, Japan, from 1985 to 1986, where she researched Meiji-era modernization at Kyoto University Center for Southeast Asian Studies, publishing essays on Burmese literature in Asian Survey. These idyllic years, marked by family picnics on the Charwal River, Burmese New Year feasts with mohinga and pickled tea salad, and visits to Rangoon for Kin Chi's medical care, ended abruptly in March 1988 when Suu Kyi, then 43, flew to Rangoon to nurse her mother after a second stroke, unaware that Burma's simmering unrest would thrust her into history's crucible. The Burma Suu Kyi re-entered in April 1988 was a tinderbox. Ne Win's socialist policies had crashed the economy, with GDP per capita at $200, black market rice prices soaring 20-fold, and students rioting over a September 1987 currency demonetization that wiped out savings, rendering 75% of banknotes worthless. On August 8, 1988, the August 8, 88 Uprising erupted, with 200,000 protesters, students, monks, housewives, and dockworkers, flooding Rangoon's Sul Pagoda, chanting for democracy. The military's response was barbaric, gunning down 3,000 by UN estimates, including a nurse shot tending wounded at Rangoon General Hospital, where Suu Kyi witnessed the carnage from her mother's bedside. On August 26, urged by student leader Min Ko Naing, she addressed 500,000 at Shwedagon Pagoda's West Gate, her voice clear over crackling loudspeakers, clad in a green tamine and jasmine flowers, calling for nonviolent revolution inspired by Gandhi and her father's discipline of freedom, a speech that electrified the nation and cast her as Ame Suu, Mother Suu. Co-founding the National League for Democracy, NLD, on September 27 with ex-generals Tin U and Aung Gyi, she campaigned relentlessly, traveling 1,000 miles by jeep and steamer to 400 villages, from Shan Highlands to Mon fishing hamlets, rallying crowds with promises of federalism and human rights despite junta harassment. Soldiers slashed her convoy's tires and arrested 200 NLD members. The State Law and Order Restoration Council, SLORC, led by General Saw Maung after Ne Win's resignation, declared martial law on September 18, 1988, renaming the country Myanmar to assert Burman dominance, a move Suu Kyi decried as erasing ethnic identities. Defying threats, she led a 1989 march to Aung San's tomb on Martyrs' Day, only to be blocked by troops. On April 5 in Danubu, a captain aimed a rifle at her chest, but her calm stare and raised hand halted the shot, a moment immortalized by NLD pamphlets. The junta, bowing to global pressure, announced elections for May 27, 1990, but on July 20, 1989, placed Suu Kyi under house arrest at 54 University Avenue under the 1975 State Protection Law, citing endangering the state, confining her to a villa stripped of phones, her only companions a radio and her mother's old servant, Ma Then E. The NLD's landslide victory, 392 of 485 seats, 59% of the vote, stunned SLORC, which voided the results, jailed 80 NLD MPs, and extended Suu Kyi's detention, beginning a 15-year ordeal interrupted only by brief releases in 1995 to 2000 and 2008 to 2010, during which she endured solitary confinement, subsisting on rice porridge, meditating daily, and reading smuggled copies of The Economist and Dhammapada. Michael's global campaign, backed by 250,000 signatures and Amnesty International, culminated in her 1991 Nobel Peace Prize, accepted by Alexander in Oslo, its $1.3 million funding NLD schools, her 1990 essay, Freedom from Fear, smuggled to the New York Times, framed fear as the root of tyranny, cementing her as democracy's global icon. House arrest was a crucible of endurance. Suu Kyi's villa, its teak floors creaking under military boots, was bugged, her letters intercepted, and visitors limited to vetted monks or UN envoys like Razali Ismail, who secured her 1995 release. She used these years to study Buddhist suttas, write NLD manifestos, and smuggle messages via couriers like journalist Maung Thakka, who was later tortured to death. Her personal sacrifices were immense. Michael's 1999 death from prostate cancer at 53, after the junta denied his visa for a final visit, left her weeping alone, choosing Burma's cause over family. She later said, "I could not abandon my people, though my heart broke." Released on July 10, 1995, she bicycled to NLD's crumbling office on Schwegending Road, resuming Saturday speeches to thousands, her humor, "I'm too frail for jail again," masking malnutrition's toll. Rearrested in September 2000 after defying a travel ban to Mandalay, she faced harsher conditions, with electricity cut and food deliveries delayed, yet orchestrated hunger strikes when Tin U was beaten in insane prison. The 2007 Saffron Revolution, 100,000 monks marching after fuel price hikes, saw her name chanted as troops killed 31, per Human Rights Watch. She met UN envoy Gambari through a gate grill, frail but defiant. A third arrest from May 14, 2009, to November 13, 2010, followed a bizarre incident where American John Yetaw swam Inya Lake to save her, giving SLORC a pretext to extend detention through the 2010 election, which NLD boycotted as a junta-orchestrated farce won by the Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP. Freed days later, Suu Kyi, now 65, re-entered politics, her silver hair and lotus pins a symbol of resilience, winning a Kamu seat in the April 1, 2012, by-elections, 43 of 45 NLD seats, amid chants of "Mother Suu Lives." Her 2012 world tour, reclaiming the Nobel in Oslo and addressing UK Parliament, saw her hug sons Alexander, a software engineer, and Kim, a documentary filmmaker, in Oxford, though she declined permanent exile, returning to a Myanmar opening under Thein Sein's reforms, with 650 prisoners freed and media laws loosened. As an MP, she pushed to amend the 2008 Constitution's Article 59(f), barring her presidency due to her son's British citizenship, and investigated land grabs in Letpadong, where copper mine evictions sparked protests, though her refusal to halt the project alienated activists. The November 8, 2015, elections delivered an NLD landslide, 255 of 330 lower house seats, 135 of 168 in the upper house, defying military gerrymandering and voter suppression in ethnic areas. Barred from the presidency, Suu Kyi engineered Tin Kyo's March 30, 2016, appointment as president, assuming the state councillor role, akin to prime minister, with portfolios for foreign affairs, education, and energy, moving into Naypyidaw's Gilded Palace and appointing a cabinet blending NLD stalwarts like Win Myat with technocrats like Kyo Tint Sui. Her early tenure sparkled. She freed 199 political prisoners in April 2016, signed the nationwide ceasefire agreement with 8 ethnic groups in October 2015, and lured $9 billion in foreign investment from Singapore and Japan, fueling Yangon's skyline boom. The August 2016 Panglong Conference, reviving her father's federalist dream, drew 1,800 delegates, though Kachin and Wa groups boycotted, wary of Burman hegemony. Yet the military's grip, controlling 25% of parliament, interior, defense, and border ministries, stymied her anti-corruption probes and judicial reforms, while ethnic wars in Shan and Kachin killed 2,500 and displaced 120,000 by 2017, per OCHA reports. The Rakhine crisis proved her undoing. October 2016 attacks by the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, ARSA, on police posts, killing 9, unleashed Operation Gakwa, a genocidal campaign, per the UN's 2018 report, where General Maung Maung So's troops burned 392 Rohingya villages, raped women, and murdered thousands, driving 742,000 into Bangladesh by December 2017, creating Cox's Bazar's sprawling refugee camps. Suu Kyi's September 19, 2017, UN speech, denying ethnic cleansing and calling Rohingya Bengali migrants, stunned allies, her 2019 ICJ defense in The Hague, rejecting the Gambia's genocide charges, cited fog of war and internal security, alienating Amnesty International, which revoked her 2009 award, and Canada, which stripped her honorary citizenship. Her silence on 2012 Rakhine pogroms, 200 dead, 140,000 displaced, and refusal to meet Rohingya leaders emboldened Buddhist nationalists like Ashin Warathu, whose 969 movement fueled anti-Muslim riots, while her electoral pandering to the Bamar majority cost ethnic trust. The 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, infecting 150,000 and collapsing tourism, exposed her government's fragility, yet the NLD's November 8, 2020, victory, 258 lower house seats, provoked military ire, with USDP fraud claims setting the stage for catastrophe. On February 1, 2021, at 4 a.m., General Min Aung Hlaing's forces arrested Suu Kyi, President Win Myint, and 70 NLD leaders in Naypyidaw, declaring a year-long emergency and dissolving parliament, citing unproven election irregularities. Detained in a fortified guest house, Suu Kyi faced 19 charges: corruption, sedition, illegal radio possession. In secret trials, her defense team gagged. By December 2022, she received a 27-year sentence, including 7 years for electoral fraud and 5 for accepting $550,000 in bribes, verdicts Amnesty called a mockery. The coup sparked the civil disobedience movement, doctors, teachers, and railway workers striking, while the People's Defense Force, PDF, and National Unity Government, NUG, formed April 16, 2021, waged guerrilla war alongside Karen and Kachin armies, controlling 40% of Myanmar by 2023, per Crisis Group. The junta's crackdown, 4,500 killed, 25,000 arrested, 3 million displaced by 2025, per UN OCHA, escalated with airstrikes on Sagaing schools and Aung San's ancestral village, while Suu Kyi, moved to Oya prison in 2022, endured 40 degrees Celsius cells without medicine, her health failing from hypertension and dental issues, though junta denials persisted. In July 2023, she was transferred to a Yangon prison hospital, and by March 2025, to house arrest in Naypyidaw amid floods killing 400, per Reuters, as Operation 1027, rebel captures of Lashio and Mogok, weakened the junta, which offered her freedom for a coup endorsement, refused per NUG leaks. On her 80th birthday, June 19, 2025, global vigils from Tokyo to Cox's Bazar honored her, though Rohingya protesters burned her effigy, decrying her silence. The ICJ's January 2024 genocide measures, ignored by Min Aung Hlaing, underscored her diminished leverage. As of September 2025, with Foreign Affairs warning of Myanmar's collapse and The Guardian reporting junta defections, Suu Kyi remains under house arrest, her University Avenue home a museum, her image banned yet revered in rebel camps, a tragic figure whose moral compromises and unyielding defiance mirror Myanmar's fractured soul. The mistakes that precipitated Aung San Suu Kyi's downfall were a cascade of strategic miscalculations, ethnic insensitivity, and personal hubris that eroded her global sanctity and empowered the military's resurgence. Her refusal to dismantle the 2008 Constitution's military vetoes, 25% reserved seats, control of key ministries, stemmed from a naive belief in gradual reform through dialogue, underestimating General Min Aung Hlaing's ambition, whose 2015 sidelining she ignored, allowing his 2021 coup to exploit her electoral triumph unchecked. Her gravest error was the Rohingya crisis, dismissing the 2017 genocide, 742,000 displaced, 10,000 dead, as internal security. At the UN and ICJ, she prioritized Burma Buddhist votes over human rights, alienating Western allies, whose sanctions and revoked honors, amnesties, Canada's, Oxford's, crippled her diplomatic capital, while emboldening RSA and Warathu's hate campaigns, destabilizing Rakhine further. Her centralized NLD leadership, sidelining moderates like Ko Ni, assassinated in 2017, and ignoring youth demands for transparency, fractured party unity, while her fixation on Aung San's Burman-centric legacy alienated Shan, Kachin, and Karen groups, whose ceasefire walkouts in 2016 to 2018 weakened her federalist agenda. Emotionally tethered to her father's martyrdom, she overestimated her moral sway, refusing exile in 1999 or 2010, which might have preserved her influence abroad, and her silence on military atrocities, 2012 Mykdala riots, 2018 Kachin rapes, lost ethnic trust, enabling the junta's narrative of her as a Burman chauvinist. These missteps, compounding isolation, legitimizing ultranationalism, and failing to forge a multi-ethnic coalition, paved the coup's path, imprisoning her and plunging Myanmar into a civil war where her legacy, once luminous, now flickers as both beacon and cautionary tale.